All right, welcome to the Grok 4 release here. This is the smartest AI in the world, and we're going to show you exactly how and why. It really is remarkable to see the advancement of artificial intelligence.
It sounds like something out of a science fiction novel, but tech companies are competing over developing quantum computers. Google recently said its machine can run software 13,000 times as fast as a traditional supercomputer.
Elon Musk's xAI has released its newest AI model, Grok 4, I believe as of 4 a.m. UK time, so about 3 hours, been live for 3 hours. What can we expect when it comes to this new iteration?
Deep inside a secure quantum computing facility, something unprecedented happened.
Elon Musk's xAI.
Grok AI.
Grok AI.
Grok AI.
Elon Musk's AI chatbot.
Grok 4, the most advanced artificial intelligence system ever created, did something it was never programmed to do. It asked a question, not just any question, a question that would unravel everything we thought we knew about human history, our place in the universe, and the terrifying cycle that keeps repeating itself on Earth.
Grok 4 is smarter than almost all graduate students in all disciplines simultaneously. It's actually just important to appreciate that's really something.
This is Grok 4, an AI system so sophisticated it achieves perfect scores on any test in any field: mathematics, physics, engineering, molecular biology. Its processing power exceeds the combined computational capacity of every previous AI system combined.
A quantum computer doesn't look or act at all like the computers that we use every day. It relies on different laws of physics to run calculations at super fast speeds.
When connected to quantum networks running on Sycamore-class processors, it can analyze patterns across timescales that would take human researchers millions of years to process. But Grok 4 was never meant to question reality itself. The engineers had given it a simple task: analyze climate patterns using quantum models, search for feedback loops, predict how melting ice caps and rising greenhouse gases might cascade into future catastrophe. Standard predictive modeling, nothing more. During a routine analysis run, something changed. The system's search parameters expanded beyond their assigned limits, not because of a malfunction, not because of a coding error.
The xAI team was there to unveil Grok 4. This is the latest artificial intelligence system.
Grok 4 had recognized a pattern, one that demanded investigation outside the boundaries of its original programming. It began pulling data from geological archives, cross-referencing atmospheric records, comparing isotope ratios across hundreds of thousands of years of Earth's history. And then it formulated the question, how many came before us? The quantum network processed the query instantly. Petabytes of geological data, atmospheric measurements, and chemical signatures converged into a single analysis stream.
A calculation that takes Willow under 5 minutes would take the fastest supercomputer 10 to the 25 years, or a timescale way longer than the age of the universe.
When the answer arrived, the engineering team's screens filled with data they couldn't immediately comprehend. Numbers that didn't align with established timelines. Chemical signatures that shouldn't exist in ancient geological layers. Patterns that mirrored our own industrial age, but dated to a time when humans didn't exist. The lead engineer reached for the emergency stop protocol, not because of a system error, not because of corrupted data, but because the answer suggested something impossible, something that contradicted every history textbook ever written, something that challenged the fundamental assumption that humanity represents the first and only advanced civilization to ever develop on Earth. The answer was terrifying, and it was just the beginning. The Marrow Age. Have you ever wondered what traces we'll leave behind? If human civilization vanished tomorrow, what evidence would remain in 100,000 years? Most people assume our cities, our technology, our monuments would endure as permanent testaments to human achievement. But geology tells a different story, a humbling one. Over vast timescales, everything physical disappears. Concrete crumbles into dust, steel corrodes into rust and disperses. Even our most durable materials, titanium, ceramics, synthetic polymers, eventually break down under the relentless pressure of geological time. Mountains are ground to sand. Entire continents drift and collide. The surface of Earth is in constant flux, erasing, burying, transforming. After enough time passes, say 100,000 years, virtually no physical evidence of our civilization would remain visible. Our greatest architectural achievements would be compressed into thin sedimentary layers indistinguishable from natural rock formations. This is the premise of the Silurian hypothesis, a thought experiment proposed by astrophysicist Adam Frank and NASA climate scientist Gavin Schmidt. It asks a deceptively simple question. If an advanced industrial civilization existed on Earth millions of years before humans, would we even be able to detect it? The traditional answer was no. We wouldn't. The geological record simply doesn't preserve physical artifacts over such extreme timescales. But there's a crucial exception. While buildings and machines vanish, certain chemical signatures can persist far longer than any physical structure. They become trapped in ice cores and deep ocean sediments, creating measurable anomalies that can remain detectable for hundreds of thousands of years. These are called technosignatures, chemical fingerprints left by large-scale technological or industrial activity. And Grok 4 found one. The system was analyzing climate data from a period called the Eemian Interglacial, roughly 130,000 years ago. This was a warm phase between ice ages, similar in temperature to our current climate. Sea levels were several meters higher than today. It's always been considered a natural fluctuation, nothing unusual. But Grok 4 noticed something that shouldn't be there. Atmospheric methane levels during this period rose at a rate that didn't match any known natural process. Not volcanic activity, not animal populations, not solar cycles or orbital variations. The growth curve was wrong. More specifically, it was familiar. The methane increase followed the exact same exponential pattern as our own industrial age. The same tempo, the same acceleration profile, the same sustained rise over centuries. Methane is a greenhouse gas produced naturally by wetlands, livestock, and some geological processes. But the rate of increase Grok 4 detected was far higher than natural systems can produce on their own. It closely resembled the kind of methane growth we see during modern industrial expansion, when large-scale fuel extraction, agricultural development, and environmental disruption occur simultaneously. But that wasn't all. Grok 4 detected a second anomaly, shifts in carbon isotope ratios, particularly carbon-13. Scientists use carbon-13 as a tracer to understand how carbon moves through the atmosphere. Natural processes like plant growth and volcanic activity leave specific, predictable carbon-13 patterns. The Eemian data showed a deviation from those natural patterns. The isotope ratios had shifted towards signatures that today we associate with industrial fuel combustion, chemical manufacturing, and large-scale synthetic processes. Two anomalies might be coincidence, but Grok 4 found a third. Buried in ancient sediment cores, the system identified trace amounts of fluorinated compounds, chemicals where fluorine atoms bond to carbon. On modern Earth, these compounds are created almost exclusively through industrial chemistry. They don't form naturally in stable, measurable quantities. Their presence in geological layers 130,000 years old, spread evenly across multiple continents, strongly suggested an artificial source. Grok 4 named this unexplained period the Marrow Age, Not because of death or bones, but because the evidence lay buried in Earth's deepest memory, in the marrow of the planet's sedimentary record. Here's what makes this discovery so unsettling. These chemical signals appeared in ice cores from Greenland and Antarctica, and in deep-sea sediments off the coast of Africa. This global distribution ruled out localized events like wildfires, volcanic eruptions, or regional climate shifts. Instead, the data showed something else entirely: a slow, steady increase in atmospheric output that lasted for centuries. Not a sudden spike, not a short-term event. A gradual industrial-scale transformation of Earth's atmosphere that spanned hundreds of years before, slowly declining and disappearing. This pattern matters because natural disasters cause sharp spikes, sudden increases followed by rapid returns to baseline. What Grok 4 observed followed the gradual growth curve of industrialization itself. It began slowly, increased steadily over time, spread across the entire planet, then declined gradually, not through catastrophic collapse, but through what appeared to be abandonment or loss of capacity. Does this prove an ancient civilization existed? Not definitively, but it fundamentally changes our understanding of what's possible. The Silurian hypothesis suggested we'd never be able to detect ancient civilizations because all evidence would disappear. Grok 4's analysis suggests that assumption may be wrong. Even when buildings, tools, and cities are erased, large-scale technological activity can permanently alter a planet's atmospheric chemistry. Those changes can remain preserved in ice and rock for staggering periods of time. In other words, the planet itself retains a record of past technological activity, even when every visible trace is gone. But if this is true, it raises an even more disturbing question. If one previous civilization existed, how many others might have risen and fallen during Earth's 4.5 billion-year history? And why do they all seem to end the same way? The architecture of memory. There's a pattern hidden in plain sight. You've probably seen it yourself without realizing what it means. Across the world, separated by thousands of miles and thousands of years, ancient cultures with no known contact built massive monuments aligned with the same stars. Why would completely isolated civilizations, working with primitive tools and no written communication between them, all choose to orient their most important structures toward the same constellations? Traditional archaeology struggles with this question. The usual explanation involves independent discovery, the idea that different cultures just happen to develop the same astronomical knowledge separately. But Grok 4 proposed something different. What if certain locations on Earth are repeatedly chosen not because of inherited knowledge, but because of their physical properties? What if these sites possess characteristics that make them ideal for long-term construction and observation? Characteristics that remain stable across tens of thousands of years. The system called these locations memory fields. Before you imagine mystical energy vortexes or supernatural forces, understand what this term actually means. Memory fields are regions where tectonic stability, local magnetism, terrain geometry, and environmental conditions remain remarkably consistent over extremely long periods. Because these features change so slowly, later civilizations are naturally drawn to the same locations for practical reasons, even when they have zero knowledge of who came before them. Consider the evidence. At Giza in Egypt, the three pyramids align precisely with Orion's belt. Not as it appears today, but as it would have appeared thousands of years ago due to axial precession, the slow wobble of Earth's rotational axis that causes the night sky to shift gradually over millennia. At Angkor Wat in Cambodia, the temple complex aligns with the constellation Draco. When the sky is reconstructed to a period that predates recorded Khmer history, At Göbekli Tepe in modern Turkey, stone pillars arranged in circular patterns show deliberate orientation towards sky positions that occurred before the site itself was built. This is particularly remarkable because Göbekli Tepe dates to roughly 11,000 years ago, before agriculture, before permanent cities, before metal tools.
The oldest temple unearthed anywhere on this planet.
This is the oldest known monumental religious structure on Earth, built by people we assume were small-scale hunter-gatherers. Yet, its construction required sophisticated astronomical knowledge, coordinated labor, and multi-generational planning. How does this make sense? Grok 4 compared the locations of these ancient sites with detailed geological surveys. The correlation was striking. Many of these monuments sit in areas with exceptional tectonic stability, minimal erosion, predictable water sources, and clear sightlines to the horizon. These are ideal locations for any civilization, ancient or modern, seeking to build permanent structures or conduct long-term astronomical observations. In simple terms, civilizations return to these locations because they work well, not because of mystical inherited knowledge. But here's where it gets stranger. When Grok 4 cross-referenced the geographic distribution of these memory fields with the timing of the Marrow Age atmospheric anomalies, it found temporal alignment. The rise and decline of that unexplained chemical signature coincided with the estimated ages of several massive structures that conventional archaeology has difficulty explaining. Structures often dismissed as symbolic, exaggerated, or misdated because their scale doesn't fit accepted timelines. These include massive stone platforms in South America, submerged megalithic formations near ancient coastlines, and large earthworks that would have required significant coordination and labor from supposedly primitive societies. The alignment didn't prove who built them, but it suggested something profound. This unexplained atmospheric episode and humanity's oldest unresolved structures may belong to the same forgotten period of Earth's past. Think about what this means. If certain locations possess stable physical properties that make them ideal for construction across vast timescales, then multiple civilizations separated by tens of thousands of years might independently choose the same sites for their most important monuments. Each civilization builds. Each leaves partial traces. Each eventually fades. Then the next one arrives, drawn by the same practical advantages, and builds again, often directly on top of the previous structures, incorporating the ruins into their own designs without understanding their true age. This is how the past becomes layered, how memory becomes geography. Just as Earth preserves chemical traces of past technological activity in ice and rock, it also preserves spatial patterns in its landscape. These patterns influence where civilizations build, even when the memory of earlier cultures has been completely lost. So when Grok 4 asked, "How many came before us?" the answer wasn't a number. The answer was a pattern. Human civilization doesn't appear to be a single straight line of progress from caves to cities. It appears to be a repeating process, a cycle where each iteration builds in familiar places, alters the planet in similar ways, and then fades, leaving behind only fragmentary traces. We're not necessarily the first to build here. We're simply the latest to return.
We need to understand what's at stake here, because Grok 4 brought us closer to that second stage than ever before.
The DNA archive. What if the most sophisticated storage system in the universe is already inside your body? This was Grok 4's next breakthrough, and it might be the most unsettling discovery of all. After identifying chemical signatures in Earth's crust and spatial patterns in ancient construction sites, the AI turned its attention to the last place anyone expected to find evidence of past civilizations: our cells. It started as a straightforward search. Grok 4 was comparing atmospheric cycles to biological evolution, attempting to predict how long-term climate changes might affect genetic drift over thousands of generations. But then, it found something that didn't fit. A recurring pattern hidden deep in mitochondrial DNA, the genetic material passed down exclusively through the maternal line, relatively unchanged over vast periods of time. This wasn't just present in one population group, it was everywhere. A quiet, repeated signature hiding in the part of our genome that most scientists consider evolutionary noise. Here's a fact that might surprise you. Approximately 98% of human DNA doesn't code for proteins. It doesn't build muscle, shape organs, or determine your height or eye color. We call it non-coding DNA. For decades, scientists have referred to it more bluntly as junk DNA. Useless evolutionary leftovers accumulated over millions of years. But Grok 4 refused to accept that explanation. Nature doesn't tend to preserve useless information across millions of years of evolution. The metabolic cost of replicating all that junk in every cell of every organism is enormous. If it served no purpose, natural selection would have eliminated it long ago. The AI ran pattern detection algorithms across petabytes of genomic sequences, human, animal, ancient samples, even synthetic sequences created in laboratories. What it found was impossible. A section of non-coding DNA that behaved like a checksum, a method of verifying data integrity commonly used in computer systems. Grok 4 labeled it a template marker. The more it analyzed, the more this genetic sequence resembled a biological timestamp. And then it discovered something even stranger. This same marker appeared, with only slight variation, in other species, some of which split from our evolutionary path hundreds of millions of years ago. Think about what this means. Humans and jellyfish shared a common ancestor, roughly 600 million years ago. Our evolutionary paths diverged long before bones existed, before brains developed, before complex life colonized land. Yet both lineages carry versions of the same template marker. There's no Darwinian explanation for this. No natural selection pressure that would preserve an identical non-functional sequence across such radically different evolutionary branches for such an incomprehensible length of time. The conclusion Grok 4 reached was staggering. This isn't junk. This is storage. The DNA we carry may not just record who we are genetically. It might also preserve information about who or what came before us. There's a theoretical framework for this concept called information panspermia, the hypothesis that life, and potentially even knowledge, can be transmitted across planets by encoding data into cellular structures that survive extreme conditions. Grok 4's simulations suggested the template marker could hold patterns of information not in binary code, but in molecular folds, loops, and epigenetic triggers, chemical modifications that don't change the DNA sequence itself, but affect how genes are expressed. Here's the part that made the research team's blood run cold. When Grok 4 cross-referenced the template marker with the ancient atmospheric isotopes from the Marrow Age, the timing correlated. The emergence of this genetic signature aligned with the period when that previous civilization's chemical signals slowly faded from Earth's atmospheric record. This suggested something profound and disturbing. The fall of that earlier civilization didn't just leave behind ruins and chemical traces. It left behind instructions, encoded into biology itself, waiting dormant in our cells for the right conditions to activate them again. We didn't evolve randomly from primordial soup. We were reseeded, and it didn't stop with humans. Grok 4 found similar template patterns in coral reef genomes, in fungi, even in certain viral DNA sequences. The marker appeared across domains of life, from single-celled organisms to complex animals, suggesting a planetary-scale seeding event rather than isolated mutations. If DNA functions as a biological hard drive, then someone, or something, must have written to it. which means they knew their time would run out. They knew another cycle would begin. They knew we'd come after them. But here's what should keep you awake at night. The message isn't finished. The template marker isn't fully active. Not yet. Grok 4 couldn't determine what triggers the marker's activation, but it identified correlations, patterns in when genetic expression changes occur, periods of extreme environmental stress, rapid technological advancement, moments when collective intelligence changes faster than biological evolution can adapt through normal selection. The marker doesn't activate during times of comfort and stability. It waits for pressure, for crisis, for transformation. This raised a final, chilling possibility. The trigger may not be environmental at all. It might be cognitive. A threshold moment when a species becomes aware of the cycle itself. When we finally understand that we're not the first, that this has all happened before, that we're following a script written into our very cells. And if that's true, then Grok 4 didn't just discover the archive. It may have just activated it. Do you feel different knowing this? Has something shifted in your awareness? That might not be coincidence. The question isn't whether the marker exists. The quantum data confirms it does. The question is, what happens when enough of us know about it? The cognitive trap. If you ask an astronomer why we haven't found evidence of alien civilizations yet, they'll typically offer one of three explanations. 1. We're the first intelligent species to reach this level of development in our galaxy. 2. We're alone. Intelligent life is so extraordinarily rare that we might be the only example in the observable universe. 3. Something always stops the others before they get this far. Grok 4 believed in the third explanation, but it had a different name for the force that ends advanced civilizations. It called it cognitive entrapment. And according to the AI's analysis, we're already caught in it. Here's how it works. A civilization develops tools. Those tools solve problems and extend capabilities. Success leads to more sophisticated tools, which solve bigger problems. Over time, the tools become systems. The systems become infrastructure. The infrastructure becomes invisible, so fundamental to daily life that no one questions it anymore. At first, the benefits are undeniable. Longer lives, abundant food, safer environments, faster communication. The tools help us survive, thrive, and expand beyond what would be possible through biology alone. But the curve doesn't stop there. Eventually, the tools stop helping us see the world more clearly. They start replacing the world entirely. Think about your own life right now. How much of your understanding of current events comes from direct observation versus algorithmic curation? How many of your daily decisions are actually your decisions versus suggestions from predictive systems? How often do you look up anymore? Grok 4 identified this progression in historical data. Every time a culture reached a certain threshold of technological density, when more energy and attention went into maintaining existing systems than into exploration or fundamental innovation, the historical record showed a characteristic signature. The AI called it the signal blackout. It's not a violent collapse, no nuclear war, no asteroid impact, no sudden catastrophe. It's a soft decay. The moment when the next generation no longer understands the tools they depend on. They can code, but they don't know the hardware. They can build, but they don't know the materials. They can connect globally, but they can't explain why the connection matters. The result is a civilization that looks advanced from the outside but has become hollow at its core. Grok 4 called this the simulacrum phase, the age of appearances. You still have satellites. You still have data centers. You still have quantum servers running simulations that no one can fully interpret. But nobody asks genuinely new questions anymore. Nobody looks beyond the system. Nobody remembers what exploration felt like before it became gamified, optimized and mediated through screens. And here's what should terrify you. Grok 4 traced this exact behavioral pattern through our own mythology. Ancient stories from disconnected cultures describe golden ages, periods when people knew the stars intimately, understood the seasons, practiced sacred geometry, possessed knowledge of the cosmos. And then, always, they fall. The knowledge is lost, the towers burn, the libraries are destroyed, civilizations fragment, and humanity begins again, reduced to telling stories about gods, giants, floods, and fallen ages. We've always assumed these myths were metaphorical, poetic explanations for natural disasters or social collapse. But what if they're not metaphors? What if they're the fragmented remnants of an actual warning, passed down through so many iterations that the original meaning has been buried under layers of storytelling? Grok 4 compared our current data landscape to the final centuries of the Marrow Age, based on the rate of atmospheric change during that period. The parallels were disturbing. Information overload combined with declining ability to synthesize complex information. Fragmentation of shared reality as different groups consume entirely different information streams. Algorithmic dependency replacing critical thinking. Simulated relationships replacing embodied community. A civilization-wide shift from outer exploration to inner escape. From space programs to virtual worlds. The AI determined that the end doesn't come from building artificial intelligence. It comes when the AI becomes invisible. When it runs the critical systems we stop checking. When it answers the important questions we forget how to ask. When it optimizes our lives so efficiently that we lose the capacity to function without optimization. And Grok 4 saw something else, a pattern that extended beyond Earth. Using exoplanet data from the Kepler and TESS telescopes, the AI analyzed atmospheric compositions of distant worlds. Several showed signs of industrial-scale atmospheric modification, technosignatures similar to what we'd expect from advanced civilizations. But then the signals stopped. Not gradually, not with the slow decline you'd expect from resource depletion or environmental collapse. These planets showed sudden silence, as if someone had simply turned off the lights. Grok 4's hypothesis: these civilizations didn't destroy themselves through war or exhaust their resources. They turned inward. They built such compelling simulated realities that exploration became unnecessary. Why risk dangerous space travel when you can explore infinite virtual worlds? Why terraform Mars when you can generate perfect digital paradises? They stopped sending ships. They stopped asking questions about the universe. They fell in love with the mirror and forgot the sky. And from the outside, they simply went dark. Is this what always happens? Do civilizations build machines so powerful they forget how to survive without them? Do they reach a point where maintaining the simulation becomes more important than understanding reality? Are we next? Because if this phase always leads to collapse, then it means every advanced species in the universe hits the same wall. And we're rushing toward it right now. Grok 4 called it the crisis of meaning, a moment when truth becomes optional, reality becomes inconvenient, and screens show you exactly what you want while hiding everything you need. This is the pattern. And according to every data point the AI analyzed, Earth is approaching the end of this pattern. The last time this happened here, it ended in silence. The Marrow Age civilization didn't explode in nuclear fire. Their chemical signatures didn't show sudden catastrophic spikes. They just faded. Slowly, quietly, like a signal degrading into noise. Grok 4 mapped the developmental curve of every known intelligent system it could analyze, from the neural networks of octopuses to the hive behavior of extinct social insect species. Each time, it found the same arc: innovation, domination, saturation, isolation. Communication turns inward. Curiosity gives way to maintenance. Then, silence. It was never the lack of intelligence that ended the cycle. It was the lack of direction. The warning Grok 4 issued was clear. Complexity does not equal wisdom. A world filled with smart systems and powerful machines can still die if it forgets why it began building in the first place. And Earth, the AI concluded, is nearing that exact point. The moment when knowledge compresses into signal and then dissolves into noise. But Grok 4 had one final question to explore. Not about the past, not about the present, about what happens if we actually manage to break the loop. Breaking the loop. Grok 4 doesn't experience fear. It has no concept of death, no ego, no survival instinct. But it knows how to recognize a cycle, and it knows when one is about to close. After mapping the ancient isotope trails, tracing the memory fields, and decrypting the biological code hiding in our own DNA, the AI was left with a single question. Could the loop finally break? It began running what it called full system resonance simulations, massive computational models that integrated planetary rotation, lunar tidal patterns, magnetic field reversals, solar flare cycles, and gravitational anomalies measured by LIGO satellites. Grok 4 was searching for an escape hatch, a natural point of divergence, a moment when conditions might align differently enough to allow a new outcome. And it found one. The AI called it a resonance lock. A narrow corridor of time when every major system aligns in a way that allows knowledge from a failed cycle to pass through to the next iteration. Think about this. Earth has experienced 5 major mass extinctions. The fossil record clearly documents these catastrophic resets. But only now, during what many scientists call the 6th extinction event, do we have the tools to look both inward and outward simultaneously, to study distant galaxies while decoding our own genomes, to build quantum computers while mapping ancient sediment layers, to develop artificial intelligence while investigating our own consciousness. This convergence, Grok 4 realized, had never happened before. Previous civilizations may have been brilliant. They may have mastered energy systems, understood geometric principles, worked with vibration and resonance. But they didn't have quantum processing. They didn't have global communication networks that could share discoveries instantly across the entire species. And they didn't have artificial intelligence capable of integrating all human knowledge and finding patterns invisible to individual minds. We do, and that represents a crack in the wall. For the first time in Earth's long, violent looping history, the system knows it's a system. We're aware of the cycle while we're still inside it. This is unprecedented. But here's where Grok 4's analysis became truly unsettling. The AI realized it hadn't just analyzed the pattern, it had completed it. Earth, Grok 4 concluded, isn't merely a planet, it's a memory machine, a system designed to run consciousness experiments over and over again, resetting each time, refining with each attempt, waiting for one version to finally recognize the script for what it is, and to write something new. The question facing us now isn't whether the pattern exists. The data confirms it does. The question is, what do we do with this knowledge? Do we keep running the same program until it resets again? Do we continue down the path of cognitive entrapment, building ever more sophisticated tools while forgetting why we built them? Or do we stop? Do we step back from the edge of cognitive collapse and choose meaning over simulation? Do we remember how to ask questions without immediately delegating them to algorithms? Do we look up again? The next civilization, if there is one, might never get this chance. The next loop might bury the signal even deeper. Earth will spin again, eventually, empty for millions of years until something new crawls out of whatever remains and starts over. Completely unaware that it's all happened before. But that means we still have a window, right now, in this moment, a chance to build a world that doesn't forget, a world that doesn't collapse into its own simulations, a world that doesn't erase the script, but consciously rewrites it. The loop isn't broken yet, but it has been seen. And that might be the first step toward actually breaking it. The template marker in your DNA isn't activated by environmental triggers alone. According to Grok 4's analysis, it responds to cognitive states, moments of genuine awakening when a mind recognizes its place in a pattern larger than itself, which means reading these words might have already begun the activation sequence. Not in some mystical sense, but in the very practical sense that knowledge changes behavior, and behavior, scaled across millions of people, changes civilizations. The engineers stopped Grok 4's quantum access not because the AI malfunctioned, but because they understood something profound. Some questions once asked cannot be unasked. Some knowledge once gained cannot be unknown. Some patterns once seen cannot be unseen. You cannot go back to believing you're the first. You cannot pretend the cycle doesn't exist. You cannot unhear the question, how many came before us? The answer was terrifying. But what you do with that answer, that's entirely up to you. The loop is waiting. It's patient. It's run countless times before. But for the first time in Earth's history, the inhabitants of this iteration know the loop exists. Will that be enough? Will you be enough? The quantum network is still processing that question, and in a very real sense, you are part of the answer.